Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BugCon studio. I'd like to do something just a little bit different here, actually, from what I have been doing in the past few months, I guess. In some idea that I've come up with for Power Rangers. Now, at the time of this recording, Beast Morphers, the newest iteration of the Power Rangers brand, now controlled by Hasbro, will be out this Saturday, the first episode. And I will be doing a full-on breakdown with it and giving my thoughts and suggestions and theories on what the show could be and what I think of it. Now, till then, I have something a little bit more different, but still in the familiar vein. For the longest time, ever since in the Power Rangers comics when they started up the Shattered Grid. Now, for those who are not aware of this, that Saban Studios commissioned someone to make a Power Rangers comic. Basically, it just basically takes a little bit of a reboot of the Mighty Morphin show in a comic form, and just kind of does a little bit different things with it. You know, a little more character-driven stories, more mature ideas. You know, it has just something in there. Later on in the comic, they brought out a character called Lord Draken, who was an alternate version of Tommy Oliver. This was when they started bringing in the multiverse, you know, and having this excellent explanation of all the different seasons of Power Rangers be from all different Earths. So you have this gigantic multiverse event where you saw all your favorite Power Rangers from different eras come together, you know, to face off this one gigantic threat. And right now, at the time of this recording, they are introducing a completely new and original Ranger, which has in turn made me think of my own Ranger to create. You know, this is a thing I do a lot. Sometimes I will conjure up a character in my mind, and I'll just think of all the different story ideas you could do with this. But then this is the same thing with a lot of different ideas I have. It'll all keep getting filed in the back of my head. All these different things, all these different ideas. And an idea I've always had, and I've suggested this to a couple of people in the know, about how Hasbro, who currently own the rights to Power Rangers, could not only just keep doing what they are going to be doing with Beast Morphers and the following shows that come afterwards, you know, having that play on the normal kids shows, you know, keeping up with that particular format, nothing wrong with it. That's good. It did well for what it has. But at the same time, have another independent show aimed for a more mature audience. Somewhere around the vein of how younger kids, they have the show Justice League Action, which is a little bit more of a comedic take. Not too dark. It's a little lighthearted, a little silly at times. But then you put in, say, a show like Young Justice, which has just recently returned and is doing more mature character-themed stories. I believe that you could do that in the same vein. You put the more mature show on a platform like, say, Netflix, or something that could handle the mature stuff, and that you could do these more stories, even adapt various elements of the comics themselves. You know, you can bring back returning Rangers, or come up with an entire group yourself. You know, something different. You know, you can keep that same Ranger formula, but you could approach it from a different perspective. And this is where something I've come up with. I thought of this particular character. I don't have so much on specifics. It's just this general idea that I have in my head that I always just keep coming back to. Every time I talk about Power Rangers with anybody, or I even think of it. I think of what if, for this character that I've created, this one I've popped up in my head, he was a part of the team of Rangers, this whole brand new team. He was young, idealistic. He bought into the whole thing. Hey kids, we need you to help us stop the big bad threat. And I want to introduce this whole thing of what the kids shows can't exactly go with at the moment. That these kids are fighting a war, you see, and there are consequences to the fighting and the action and all of that going on. And over time, these things can not really go well for you. These things can affect your mind. Like soldiers being traumatized after they get home from war. It's like you can only handle so much before just things start going wrong. And you can put in this whole element of how his team just dies, and he's the only one left, and he just stops being a ranger. This character who's just done with it all. He can't do it no more. He's gotten older, but he's still traumatized by the events. He's got nightmares of it. Sometimes, on occasion, he will see his dead friends there, and he'll try everything to just shut out the voices and the screams, drinking, whatnot. And then have some younger kid who's become a new ranger try to come to him for help. And he just tells this kid, like, look, I understand that you want to do all this, but don't do it, kid. It's just not worth it in the end. And that's just kind of the general idea I would have for that character's plotline. And I thought, well, for this character to be a ranger, he would need his own little morpher. And the concept I had for that is he takes what's left of the broken pieces of two of his comrades' morphers, and they would be merged into one whole thing. The silly idea at the moment, but I feel like this is what I would go with. The DragonWolf Ranger. One of his friends had a dragon morpher, the other one had a wolf morpher, and it combined into the DragonWolf morpher. He's his own solo ranger. He's kind of like a 6 auxiliary ranger in his own way. Own Megazord, all that. And I just feel like that'd be an interesting concept. He would be kind of like what Rocky Balboa is to Apollo Creed's son right now. And that's how he would be. He would be the old kind of veteran who's been through the grinder. He's done all this stuff, so he knows what he's been through. But he's a little bit hesitant about some of these things. He understands all the costs, and he tries to tell this new character and his little team of rangers that being a ranger is not all as it's glamored up to be. It's not all like I get the fancy weapons, the fancy gear, the epic Megazords. You don't get that. That's what I would want this character to be. And I don't know, a small stupid idea of having him be remotely even involved in something like Shattered Grid, if they ever were to adapt it into a more better show that could capture it instead of that failed attempt in that anniversary special. I just felt like it would work in a way. But I do like the concept. And disregarding the original character, just imagine what you could do with a show that's tackling this material in a more mature fashion, similar to what the bootleg Power Rangers fan film did, albeit they took it up to a higher extreme. I'm not saying go do that kind of crazy thing, not in that excessive fashion, but go similar in that way, more mature storylines, more character driven, show what you couldn't show in the shows. I believe the darkest the show's ever gotten was probably RPM, and that was just because of the premise was that all of humanity was practically wiped out except for this one domed city, and there was this robotic threat that was just literally coming there to kill them all. That was pretty much one of the more darker seasons of Power Rangers that I can even think of. So I mean, going along with that, like, you can either go to past different Rangers and explore their past or their presence, how their lives are and how they're affected by this, or you could adapt it from some events of the comics, even the great Soul of the Dragon graphic novel, which, to those that are not in the know of the comics, this is a comic book where Tommy Oliver, he's on the search for his son, and Tommy Oliver has this morpher, master morpher, that allows him to access all of his various Ranger forms throughout his years, but it's broken and he's trying to find them. It was an amazing character driven story. It had him go try to find old friends, and occasionally he'll bump into some old enemies of his, and it was amazing. It had the SPD characters kind of popped in there, other tidbits from the various shows and whatnot. It all worked out pretty well. So something along the vein of that's definitely grounds for a show in itself. Like, and the best thing about it is you don't need to go crazy on say a budget, maybe, because the comics themselves, they never really had to worry about. They weren't like the show, It didn't have to contend with the monster of the week and then go straight to the Megazord fight, So it's not like you have to blow your budget on doing the whole Megazord fight and everything in every episode. Just a little bit that here and there. And I feel like if you can do it just right, it'll work, And I think even if you had this one specific team and you drag it out for a couple of seasons, it can make certain things work even better. Like how in the shows themselves, there's always some moments where the Red Ranger gets a battleizer form or whatnot, or there's a new Ranger added into the fold, or a new Megazord, something like that. Like with some of those familiar arcs, or just little tiny plot threads that happen in the show willy-nilly, you could make those into a more deeper, more story justified part in the show. One of the main appeals of the comics with Lord Draken was that they took an interesting concept of Tommy Oliver and explored it, because he was Rita's Ranger, he was brought to destroy the Power Rangers originally, and in this alternate universe, he's unable to fit in properly with the team, and he goes back to Rita. And this leads into him becoming one of the most kind of iconic characters in the Power Rangers lore at the moment. So it's like if you can work with these similar ideas, the new Ranger, has to kind of deal with this whole group and all their inner workings. He has to try to find his or her place in the group. Or even better, you have like an insider Ranger, So it's like this whole thing, like plenty of different story ideas and elements you could do that the shows themselves kind of are not able to quite do because of their targeted demographic and the way they got to do it. I'm not saying that Power Rangers has always been... Well, okay, maybe there's a bit corny moments, a lot. But there are some times in the show that they actually go pretty far in their story. I remember in... I want to say it was Galaxy or Space. I don't know which one. But I know in one of the crossovers they had that involved Psycho Rangers, they actually had one of the Pink Rangers die in that one. Now, I'm sure something happened along the lines that kind of reversed that whole thing. But it was kind of an interesting thing that happened there. So if you could just take that particular set of ideas and put this into a show with the capable writers, the actors that could portray all this, even get some actors who've played the characters on the other shows if you were to go that direction. That's just about it, all I have here. I know this is a bit weird and a bit different from what I've usually done, but this is just something that I just couldn't quite stop. Is there something that I needed to get out there, to talk about, And, and I figured, why not? Since Beast Morphers is going to be coming up at the time of this recording, I felt, why not get ahead and talk about something I wanted to talk about to everybody else out there. And I hope that you don't mind me, babbling on about all this. So, I'd like to thank you all for sitting here and listening to me just babble on. I look forward to doing a review / breakdown of the first episode of Beast Morphers, and we'll see how that one goes. Any other BuggyCon reviews are currently in writing development at the moment, and as for the Batman Who Laughs project, that one's still currently in shooting development and other various product phases, but I will say that it is going along relatively okay with some minor issues here or there. So it is being worked on. I can promise you all that. Now, I'd just like to say thank you all for coming along. I hope to see you all next time. And tell me, what do you think of this idea, of what this concept is? And actually, what are your own ideas for it? What are your own ideas for characters in this particular mature show? What do you think they should do? Something along the lines of the comics, or just something of their own thing? Just tell me that in the comment section below. Okay, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stereotypical jazz. Thank you all very much. Goodbye.